Welcome to the CBT Dive, a vodcast that goes into the lives of real people with real struggles. Each episode welcomes a new guest who wants to explore a challenging situation using the most common cognitive behavioral therapy tool, the thought record. Your host, Rahim Thawa, is a social worker and psychotherapist based in Toronto and well known for his work in LGBTQ communities. He's created the CBT Dive to demystify what therapy can look like and share intervention skills for wellness. Podcasts. To follow Rahim on social media, check out ladyativan.com. See you soon.
Today, I'd like to welcome a friend, somebody I've known for a long time, Farah. Farah is a South Asian Muslim woman in an interracial and interfaith relationship. She's passionate about education as a vehicle to uplift communities, and she's her father's primary caregiver after her mom and grandmother's passing in February 2020. Welcome, Farah. How are you today?
I'm good, Rahim. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm good. Farah, I need to start by asking, what do you know about CBT, if anything?
Yeah. I know a little bit because I've read Mind Over Mood. It was recommended to me many years ago.
Fabulous. Yes.
So I don't
Yeah.
couldn't explain, but I know that it's got some activities, and that's pretty much that's the only way I can describe CBT.
Yes, it's got activities. Lovely.
Yes.
Okay, great. So, look, I'm just going to share that, the basic premise of CBT is that our thoughts and emotions and behaviors are all connected, right? So if we take a look at a particular situation, we can identify what difficult feelings come up, and we can see if those feelings are connected to automatic negative thoughts or unhelpful thought patterns that are holding you back. And so our objective is going to be to analyze a particular situation in a linear way so that we can see what feelings come up and if we can reduce the intensity of those feelings by restructuring some of your thought process. Does that sound like something you're willing to take a dive into today?
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds
All
great.
right, love it. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get right into it. All right. So before today's episode, I had asked you about something you're experiencing that you might want to work on. And you had mentioned that you experienced spurts of anger. And for context, you had mentioned that it's like about your mom passing away and that you're quote unquote left with your dad. But I don't know that that context is always super present when you're experiencing the spurt of anger. So my question is, can you name a more recent time where you experienced anger or a spurt of anger, as you called it?
Yeah. To be honest, Friday I had it.
Okay.
Um, but now that I think back, there was something that had triggered it, but it was a spurt. And when I'm really angry, I start to cry. Like that's normally
Mm,
happens.
okay.
Yeah, the situation was it happened on Friday. Do you want context of what happened?
Yeah. Tell me a bit about what happened in that situation or what the trigger was for the anger.
Sure. So so my dad, since my mom and grandma passed away, has been struggling with depression. Like he doesn't eat
Hmm.
very much. He showers once a week. But I would argue that like prior to the depression, he had some pretty like narcissistic, like manipulative, self-centered behavior. So
Hmm.
whenever he says something, he either doesn't follow through with it, or the template I have is he's too lazy to do it. So he'll kind of manipulate somebody else into doing it for him.
Ah, okay.
So I was getting fruit from the fridge, and my dad had told me that he had cleaned out the fridge, and we like to go through
Hmm.
it once a month. Produce just doesn't go bad or whatever. So I had all
Right.
this fruit, and I took out some grapes. I washed them, and I went off to work. And
Yeah.
then I realized, opened my grapes, that there was actually maggots in my food. Yeah,
Oh,
because my dad had told me that he had cleaned out the fridge, but actually hadn't. or because he drinks every
Mm.
night and anxiety pill doesn't remember, or because what, so for whatever reason he told me it happened but it didn't happen.
Mm.
And I got so angry. I got home, the first thing I did was throw all the produce and stuff out of the fridge and clean it. um and then I
Right.
just got really angry because I thought, like, I'm stuck with the parent that I dislike. I'm stuck with the
Mm.
parent that has been manipulative and lied in the past. I'm stuck with the parent that I do everything for. So, like, my sister and I took care of all
Right.
the documentation. My mother passed away. We took care of everything that had to do with Moss, the estate, my mom's
Right.
pension, cleaning the
Mm.
house, doing laundry, cooking. Like, my father doesn't do any of those things.
I
So I think it
see.
was just on top of that, like, oh, on top of somebody who I already do so much for and who doesn't appreciate what I do because he always has something to complain about or victimize about. This
Mm.
happened. The impact was that, like, I had, like, what the chances that I, like, ate bugs or whatever, and then the next day I had a bacterial infection. It was a mess.
Oh
So
no.
it fell into this cycle, but the trigger of it was like, I literally ask you to do minimal things. You give me your word that you've done it, and then this
Yeah.
happened.
And then this happens. Okay. So I think I love the context you've given me. But I'm gonna zone in on a very specific situation and we'll tap into the larger context, I'm sure, as we go along. So let's see if I've got it right. It's this past Friday when you found maggots in your fruit as a result of your dad's neglect, and his neglect was due to his depression and substance use. Is that accurate?
Mhm.
Okay. And so, of course, you mentioned that you felt angry. What other feelings did you have in the moment, do you think?
Exhaustion,
Yeah.
sadness.
Mhm.
Normally, because I have found that my anger is usually a mask because I'm sad.
Fair. Yeah.
Yeah, anger, exhaustion, sadness, and, like, I just had that moment of, like, defeat. Like, what else am I going to do, or how much
Ah.
more can I do?
Mhm.
In addition to trying to, like, rewrite my own templates and heal the way that I can. So yeah, I think those are
Right.
probably four that I felt. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so I'm just thinking about what you've described when you say like not sure what I'm gonna do or unsure about moving forward. Um, I'm thinking there's like the feeling I'm picking up on there is uh like feeling a bit directionless or maybe uncertain. Is that a feeling that's coming up as well?
The uncertain no. I felt like that incident actually pivoted something really positive for me after.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, but the uncertain, there was a bit of that because I do have that of, like, when I'm not living with him, like, I caught it. I don't know if my dad would. So there was
Mm.
that uncertainty of, like, I don't know if dad would catch it, or if he would even care to catch it. And like,
So there's a
coming
hint
from,
of
like,
relief there.
there's a hint, not really relief, I'd say maybe more worry, to think that, oh, if if
Yes.
someone was around to catch it and then dad did
Yeah.
it, and right, he's going through his depression. My father was
Mm.
also diagnosed with cancer last year, so, like,
Mm.
that worry was not the primary. I would say anger, those things came first,
I
but there was
see.
maybe 20% worry of, like, oh, I wonder what this will be like when I don't live with him.
I see. And when you think about, this thing about not living with him comes up in this moment because it's about him being able to take care of himself and his difficulty doing that. I'm going to name a couple other feelings, and I just wonder if they're there. You could say yes or no. Um, uh, Guilt, grief,
Grief,
fear,
yes. Fear, yes.
grief, fear.
No guilt.
Um, no, did you say no guilt?
No guilt, yeah.
Okay, okay. So we've got a good list of feelings here: anger, exhaustion, sadness, defeat, worry, fear, and grief. Right. So I'm gonna go through each of these and ask you to rate the intensity with which you felt them this past Friday. Right. And when I ask for the intensity, um, it's on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 is very intense, 1 is not so intense. So feeling angry?
10.
10. Okay, great. Exhaustion.
10.
All right. Sadness?
Oh, yeah, 10. It was pretty real.
Okay. Defeat?
About an 8.
Worry?
5.
Fear?
2.
2. And grief?
2.
2. Now, for you, I just have to also ask, does grief come with physical sensations for you in your body, or anger
Yeah,
come with physical sensations?
both do.
Oh, okay. Can you tell me a bit about that? I just want to list them here because I think feelings can be so embodied that it's important to capture sometimes. Yeah.
Sure. So I'll start with anger because I remember that one because it just happened 2
Yeah.
days. So with anger, my body gets very stiff, like my muscles tense.
Mm.
I'm very very angry. My hands will shake. My heart rate elevates. Um, I can be quite cool and focused and like say what I need to say, but then right after it's met with like hysterical crying as a release in the body just needs to get out.
Mm. Okay. Okay, that's good to know. So we'll just keep those on the side. I don't know if we're going to return to them necessarily. I think each of those physical sensations makes sense with the amount of responsibility, grief, stuff that you're carrying. Um, so we'll come back to it. You had mentioned that in terms of your behavior, excuse me, when you're angry, you're actually good for a moment at being composed and saying what you need to say. Is that something that happened on Friday?
Yeah, I said what I needed to say. And I try my best to have a little bit of space between like my feeling and impulse instead of just jumping on it. It's like take a breath and be very deliberate about what you're trying to communicate.
Yeah,
Um,
great.
as opposed to coming at it because I don't think that that's useful.
Sure. And then there was the cry that came after that.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
like
Okay.
excessive like anxiety of like cleaning up the whole fridge and making sure that everything was okay everywhere else.
Yeah. I wonder if we should go back to the feeling list and add the word anxiety.
Mm.
It seems like that was there, huh?
I think when it comes to anxiety for sure. And just sorry with the feelings list, what I listed for you was anger. Like grief looks a little bit different.
Yeah, that's okay. That's totally fine. With anxiety, how would you rate that?
Oh, 10 for sure.
Okay. Yeah, then it's important to list if it's so central in the experience. Okay. Now I'm going to go through some of these feelings, right? We've got anger, exhaustion, sadness, defeat, worry, fear, grief, anxiety, right? All of those are 8 to 10, except for fear, worry, and grief. Those are like 5, 2, and 2. So I'm going to start with the emotions that have some of the higher intensity. And maybe you can tell me what thoughts were going through your mind as you were experiencing those emotions in this particular, refrigerator maggot situation. So when you felt angry, you thought,
I thought, I can't believe I am burdened with the parent that I don't respect and don't like.
mm,
I can't believe that I have to take care of somebody who has caused so much pain um, in my family and specifically caused my mother a lot of pain.
mm. So I can't believe I have to take care of someone who caused my family pain.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay. Um, when you get so there's like these feelings of disbelief that are coming up. Um, I wonder when you're angry, do you feel, or are you also thinking about does it feel like your dad is deliberately doing some of this to you?
No.
No. Okay. But your anger is, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like a lot of it is directed to him. It's not just
Yeah.
directed to like the circumstances.
Yeah. I think in that moment, like, I don't think he intentionally didn't, like, I don't think he intentionally wanted to not make sure that the fruit was not okay. Like, I don't think that was the intention. I think it
No,
was like, and I think that's why I don't think it was deliberate, because he felt bad about it.
of
But I think
course.
what it was, as you're saying it, I think it was one of those things that was like, well, if mom was here, like, this would have been done.
Ah, okay.
Like, if mom was here, then this wouldn't be a worry. And like, I'm upset that, that my mother left me with you, um,
Yeah.
knowing how much I don't like.
Yeah.
Which is rational, but that's how it felt.
So I'm upset that mom left me with you, knowing that I don't like you. Yeah. Um, so I can see that some emotions are coming up, and I just want to make space for that because that is very normal. You're also talking about some heavy stuff. So just let me know if you need a break at all. Maybe we could take a quick pause and you can join me in taking a deep breath in.
Yeah, that'd be good. Okay,
All
I
right.
appreciate.
Yeah, of course. This is tough stuff, and it's multi-layered. So I want to go back to this moment where you're angry because I think when you initially discover the maggots, there's anger toward your dad, right? And what is I wonder, like when you first get frustrated with him, what's that thought?
Um, I don't know why I'm trying to heal with someone who's not going to change.
Ah, okay, yeah. So I don't know why I'm trying to heal with someone who can't change. Now, tell me about the sadness and the exhaustion. Do you feel sad and exhausted because?
The sadness comes twofold. One, like I mentioned, with my mom being gone and stuck with my dad. But two, I'm sad for my dad that, like, I don't think he became a narcissist on his own. I think some of that stuff was inherited. And that I'm sad that, like, he can't recognize or doesn't have the tools to be able to break through it in a way, that I think would be healthier for him overall. And then the exhaustion,
Yeah.
I think the exhaustion is just like life, right? Like, in when my mother and my grandmother passed away, I was in my first year of graduate school. So
Mhm.
I was in graduate school, I was working two part-time jobs, I was full-time caregiver for mom. My parents were diagnosed 4 weeks apart.
Right.
So I think it's just like, I think it's the overall exhaustion. And then it's the
Yeah.
exhaustion, like, yeah, I'm trying to heal and rebuild my relationship with this parent. There are small improvements that I'm trying to make space to recognize. But at the end of the day, like, the bigger things that I would need him to change or recognize aren't happening. On top of starting a new job, on top of, like, still living in the house that my mother and grandmother we lived in together, on top of,
Mm.
still living with the person who caused me majority of my trauma growing up, right? So I think the exhaustion is
Yeah.
all that, and I'm like, oh, I'm still in it. I'm still feel like I'm stuck in certain parts of it, and that exhaustion's like, I want out of it. Like, I'm just tired. I'm tired of having to continually deal with it, or continually feel like I have to babysit my father's emotions, because I can't have as honest of a conversation as him as I could with someone else, because he doesn't have, he doesn't have the tools, I think, to have the level of conversation that I would like to have with him.
Right. Yeah. I can totally appreciate that. Um, Look, I'm just gonna reread some of the things I wrote because you said quite a bit, and all of it was good. But I don't think I want to make sure I captured it. I definitely didn't get your exact words, but I hope I captured the sentiment. So, you had said, "I don't know why I'm trying to heal with someone who can't change. I'm sad for my dad that he's unwell and doesn't have the tools to get better. I've been a caregiver nonstop since my mother and grandmother died, and I'm stuck and want out." Does that
Yeah.
capture what you just said?
Yeah. And
Okay.
it's I would say even nonstop caregiver before, because my grandmother lived, with us. So the primary caregivers for my grandmother were my mother, me, and my sister. So it's like I had 25
Mm,
years being, Ma's primary caregiver, because there were certain things she would only do with me and not do with my sister and my mom. Um, and then as soon as, like, mom moved in with my aunt, and then my mother got sick, and so then I became the caregiver for my mom. Now they are both free from their pain, and I'm the caregiver for my dad. So majority of my life
right.
has putting somebody else in front of, you know, me, really.
Yeah. And tell me about when you think about being this long-term caregiver, is there like an image that pops into your mind that might help me understand the sense of defeat or anxiety? An image, a memory. It could also be a thought, but I have a sense that you've been in this position for a long time, and there's
Yeah.
something that you're trying to get away from that you dread, and you might have a visual image of that.
You know what it is? The only vision that comes to mind is I remember when the pandemic, the second wave, when ICU beds were
Mm,
incredibly overwhelmed. Someone had done this water painting of a nurse, or of a hospital caregiver, that just they were hunched over and just
yeah.
looked completely exhausted. And I only have those feelings when it comes to my dad. For my grandmother, I did experience caregiver burnout, and moments were tough, but I don't regret that I was able
Mm,
to provide for her. And the same way for my mom. Like, I was doing 10-hour shifts at the hospital in palliative care every day until she passed away.
okay.
And I
And
had no
so,
problem. But
and
with
what
my
feels different?
dad,
What's different about dad?
I think what's different about dad is that when I like him a lot less than I liked my mother and my grandmother.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I'm going to pause you right there. I want to
Yeah.
turn this into kind of a cohesive, like a thought that helps explain the defeat. Like,
Mm,
um, like I'm stuck taking care of uh dad. Um, I'm just trying to think about how we might frame this because it seems like you're experiencing caregiver burnout that's very specific to your father.
yeah.
And I'm just thinking, um, what's the thought that helps explain why you don't like him? Like I don't
Mm,
like him because he never listens to me, or he doesn't acknowledge that I am helping him, or he doesn't acknowledge the pain that he's caused me, right? You've alluded to that a few times that he was perhaps not the best parent. And so I'm trying to capture that a little bit because I think that's where some of the anger comes from. I
I think
have to
it's
be a caregiver for someone who doesn't, or for someone who didn't, blah, blah, blah.
I think it's tough to be a caregiver for someone I don't trust.
Okay. It's tough to be a caregiver for someone I don't trust. Thank you for that. That really helps capture it, I think.
I,
And I'm curious to know, what do you worry will happen if you continue to be a caregiver for someone you don't trust? What will be the consequence for you, or the long-term
mm,
implication?
it's a great question. Sorry, I'm just taking a second to think.
Take a moment. Yeah.
That I'll get stuck doing it for the rest of my life, because I will be afraid to think, like, oh well, what if he actually is telling the truth, and then I'm not there to support that. And you know what it is, I think, as I'm
Mhm.
thinking this through, yeah, I think that feeling is true, is that I'll be stuck doing it forever.
Mhm.
But because this is the parent, I have such a complicated relationship, there's also a fear of like, I don't want him to die and I still have unresolved stuff, because
Yes.
that in my mind feels like it's tougher to do than to try to resolve it now.
So I don't want dad to die while we have unresolved issues.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you think about like you've endured a lot of loss in the last little while. I would argue, even before people died in your family, there was already anticipatory loss, right? You're doing palliative care. And so it seems to me, now I could be wrong, but it seems to me that you had much more resolve with mom and grandma. And so what is your fear about, like, about in terms of dad dying and you not resolving issues? And then what do you worry will happen to you? Or will there be another consequence to that?
I guess I worry like, if there's an answer that I want from my dad, I wouldn't be able to get it if he's gone.
Mm,
But the
okay.
reality is that, I can't get answers from him now because he chooses to be dishonest, or chooses to not really, be open about talking
Yeah.
about things that he's done, right? Like if it puts him in a bad light, or he has to relive the trauma he's caused people, he can't talk about it. But if it's him talking about his own feelings, or it has to do with him, then it's, that's a little bit easier for him to do.
Okay. Um, so I'm typing it as you talk, but some of
Yeah.
my challenges is that I'm so used to paraphrasing that, tell me if I got this right. I said, dad's dishonesty will make it difficult for me to heal or feel resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah. And um, I wonder if when we say defeat, like that, it's such a strong word. It makes me think that it's not just it'll make it difficult. It's more like dad's dishonesty means I won't be able to heal or feel resolution.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna, you would agree with that? It's more finite.
More fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So dad's dishonesty means I won't heal or feel resolution about my past. And I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say that perhaps the last statement we put down, dad's dishonesty means I won't heal or feel resolution about my past, is maybe the most central thought that is driving the anger, exhaustion, sadness, defeat, and anxiety. Would you agree?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So what's interesting to me here is, okay, so I just want to tell you a little about what I did here. First, I asked you a lot about anger and the thoughts connected to the anger. But then I found that your automatic thoughts about anger actually couldn't be distilled much further. So, for example, I can't believe I'm burdened with the parent I don't respect or like, or I can't believe I have to take care of someone who has caused my family pain. If my mom was here, then I wouldn't have to worry about this. That's all true. But I felt like I couldn't do much with it. And then I remembered that, anger is a secondary emotion and shows up in a way that masks so many other things. So then my second hypothesis was that it's the sadness, which you rated at a 10, the exhaustion that you rated at a 10, the anxiety that you rated at a 10, and the defeat that you rated at an 8. That was really what I needed to pay attention to. And so when we did that, we came to this idea that, when we're talking about sadness, it's or defeat, it's tough to be a caregiver for someone I don't trust. And then we kind of distilled it to dad's dishonesty means I won't heal or feel resolution about my past. And that makes it, we got to a point where it makes it about you. We have a thought, right, that makes you feel really stuck and drives a lot of the feelings you're feeling in the feeling list. Does that make sense in terms of how we got here to this thought? Okay, so this thought that I put in bold is what we're going to call the hot thought. The hot thought is often something that is wrapped up in the automatic thoughts that represents an unhelpful thought pattern. Usually it's quite definitive and it needs some work, but it is the one that's the most salient among the automatic thoughts, and it's not always the one that's at the surface. So it's hard for someone without being coached through this process to be able to identify it. So now we're going to go to the next step. But before we do, I just want to acknowledge that the automatic thoughts column is probably the hardest and it's tiring. How are you feeling in this moment of just having gotten there?
I feel really good. I think, well, one, I appreciate you going through stuff because I think the anger is also like the low hanging fruit. Like I know that I'm angry, but it's like it's you're right in the sense that it's the symptom of something else. And dad's dishonesty, meaning I won't heal. Like I have felt those things before, but I don't think I've given shape or wording to that pain. So when I
Mm,
appreciate you helping me giving like shape to that pain, because I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I'm so irritated, or that like that's why
right.
this is so tough.
Yeah.
So I appreciate helping identify that. And I think it was also really good for me to see visually, like, oh, here's how the
Yes.
correlation, because I think if I was doing this alone, I probably would have just stayed stuck on anger. And it would have been tough for me to think through like what's the actual, what am I actually trying, like what am I actually really upset about, and what am I trying to solution.
Mm,
So no,
yeah.
this was great.
Okay, lovely. So now the next two columns are about evaluating the evidence for and against this hot thought. So dad's dishonesty means I won't heal or feel resolution about my past. Now, what's evidence that you have from your life that supports that idea that you're not going to get the healing or resolution you want?
So like my dad is very dishonest about money, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll like, he'll say he made this much money, but like he's had a lot of debt, so that doesn't line up. Um, so that's just one. That's like the primary one I can say is that dad's is quite dishonest about his money
Okay.
and debt.
So, in terms of evidence about his dishonesty, we've got that he lied about the money. He's lied about money and debt in the past, maybe even in the present. He's also lied about seemingly small things like household chores,
Yeah.
right? So, I'm curious to know if there's any evidence that supports the other side of that hot thought that you won't heal or feel resolution about your past.
Can you walk through that with me? So like what
Yeah,
like so
totally.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So it might be that, you know, um, you've been working on this relationship for so long and you haven't found healing or resolution yet, right? That could
Mm,
be evidence that it's not going to happen, right? Your hot thought is that the dishonesty means that something you want is not going to happen, which is healing and feeling resolution. And we're trying to find evidence that supports that idea because it comes from somewhere, right?
mm,
So the fact that your dad is dishonest or might continue to be is rooted in the past. And you've given me evidence. He's lied about money and debt in the past. Dad has also lied about um, seemingly small things like chores. So one thing that I would add maybe is that I've been trying to work on our relationship. And I don't, I don't know. Do you feel closer to healing or do you feel like you haven't gotten there?
no, I feel closer to healing for sure.
Okay. So I've been trying to work on our relationship and I don't feel the resolution I'm yearning for. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
Yeah.
Okay, because I know you're saying you have done some healing, but that maybe will go in our next column when we are looking for evidence that doesn't support the idea, right? So I'm wondering
Sorry,
if
can we
there's
add
a
that supports the hot, because there's one that's like burning through my head.
please tell me yes.
like my dad cheated on my mom for a very long time.
Uh-huh.
Was very dishonest about it. And I think that, like, outside of the money thing, that's, I think, the core of, like, well, I don't trust that you really have anything. I don't trust that you're ever going to tell me the truth, because you had this one lie for a very long time and you lied to multiple people about it.
Ah, and so that's huge part of the dishonesty. And do you think that has anyone else in your family been able to heal from that?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't think I've ever asked other people how they felt about it. I think I've seen some patterns of behavior in other people in my family, but yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable saying that other people, have healed or have not healed, because I don't know if they have.
Do you assume that they haven't healed from that? Like they still feel fairly angry about that?
I would say, yeah. I'd say in my family, it's a mix of, like, they feel angry about it, or, like, in some members of my immediate family, I think that the trauma of life and what's happened in my family is so severe that they
Yeah.
don't even remember what's happened beyond a year ago. Like,
Mm,
they
they
like, oh,
can't, yes.
he did that, and it's like, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So when we think about evidence that supports the hot thought is dad's dishonesty means I
Mhm.
won't heal or feel resolution. Your evidence is twofold. It entrenches where your dad's dishonesty comes from, where it continues to show up. And you also think about your healing and your resolution, right? You don't feel resolved despite a lot of your efforts. And you being a caregiver says to me that you probably have been trying harder than other people in your family.
Yeah.
And your uh, your other relatives, as far as you assume, they also haven't healed from this, right? So that is evidence that supports that the idea that you might not heal, because how could you if other people also haven't, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move over to the next column, and now we're looking for evidence that does not support the idea that the dishonesty means you won't heal or feel resolution. Okay, this might be a bit harder, but we're not trying to say here that your dad is an honest person sometimes. What what we want to focus on is evidence that suggests you could heal or feel resolution.
Okay.
Okay, so what's evidence that you could heal or feel resolution about your past? So, for example, you had mentioned you've done some healing work with your dad. Tell me a bit about that.
Well, we had a big blowout uh, a few weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
where I basically told him that I resented him,
Mm-hmm.
and I listed all the reasons why I resented him.
Yes.
And it was the first time in 30 years that he said, no, you're right, that he acknowledged my feelings and
Wow.
acknowledged, yeah, as opposed to being defensive or gaslighting or ignoring. I listed all these things, and I, had my angry cry while I was saying it. And he said, no, you're right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's huge. Okay, so you've done some healing work with dad, and here's some evidence that you could heal in part, right?
Yes.
So
Sure.
I've been able to share my grievances and had him acknowledge that I was right for the first time in 30 years. So that's not full healing, but it's healing in part. I like that. Um, is there anything else you would want to share that suggests that uh, you might heal or feel resolution about your past?
I see my dad trying in other ways. So, like, the small thing, like, yes, he didn't clean the fridge, or wasn't on top of it, but he makes an effort to, like, cook a few times a week, because he knows that I am, like, on a new meal plan. And so he'll always ask me, what can I get, or what can I make
Mm,
that supports your plan, because you have this goal, and I know how
yes.
important it is for you to meet this goal. So here's how food is a way that he knows how to help, I think, in that way of, like, yeah, I
Lovely.
can cook
Okay.
you on groceries or whatever. Yeah.
All right. Now we're going to move on. We're in the final stretch. The second last column is called the alternative thought, or sometimes it's called the balanced thought.
Okay.
Now, your hot thought was dad's dishonesty means I won't heal or feel resolution about my past. You've evaluated this hot thought. What might be a more balanced or alternative thought to the bolded hot thought?
I think the
And
alternative
there could be
thought,
multiple, sorry, just so you know, there can be multiple things that we say that could be more helpful.
yeah. I think the alternative thought is that I can recognize where my dad is making the effort, and I have resolution. I can have resolution in those areas.
Mm. And have some resolution. Okay, that's useful. I mean, when he tries to make an effort, what does it say to you? What does that convey?
It
Like he's doing
conveys to
things in
me
the
that,
present.
yeah, it will conveys that he cares. I
Mhm.
think it conveys that I think he's trying to the best of his capacity. I truly believe that.
Yes. So this is dad shows that he cares um, in the ways he can.
Yeah.
I kind of want to add in an and or a but. Like, but he won't be able to make up for the past, but I won't be able to let go of the past, or and I have to keep the past separate. What are you thinking? I'm thinking of something that combines these things.
Yeah. I as you're saying that, like the first thing that came to mind, which
Mhm,
feels true for me in this moment. Maybe we'd have to revisit this thought
mhm,
record in
mhm,
um dad shows that he cares in the ways that he can.
mhm.
uh, I would say not but and it can help me recognize the areas of resolution that like I have the freedom to let go of. Like maybe I don't need the answer to why he cheated on my mom. Maybe those are things I'm holding on to because I think that they will hold some kind of revelation for me or freedom from anger. But the reality is like, oh, maybe I can make peace with how he is trying and also accept, the pieces of resolution that I won't get. Um,
Mm,
and then the other piece of it could also be making peace with not getting resolution the way that I want it.
yeah. Um,
Like that it
all
won't
right.
it won't look that I think it should look, but that doesn't mean it's not
Right.
resolution.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna make that another thought actually. Resolution likely won't show up exactly in the way that I'd like to see it. Um, now, part of this caregiver thing, right? There's also a bit of stuckness that you've alluded to before, and I just want to capture that. I wonder if that needs to be in our alternative thought. Um,
Mm.
um, like, what do you suspect will happen when you want to move out and live your life independent of him?
I think it's that, I can make peace that I can move forward with my life and that
Mhm.
his grief and depression are not my responsibility.
Yes. So look, even if there wasn't a huge um like even if there wasn't such a difficult past with him, um becoming independent and having your own life is um it's a tension that you kind of have to live with, even if you do get all the resolution, because separating from him when he can't take care of himself is going to be hard for you.
Mm.
Right. So the way I'm thinking of phrasing this is regardless of our healing process, leaving dad um, will be hard,
Yeah.
right? It's not just hard because he's dishonest or you guys don't trust each other. It's hard because that's a hard thing, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go over some of your alternative thoughts here. So first, the hot thought was, Dad's dishonesty means I won't heal or feel resolution about my past. Your alternative thoughts, I can recognize where my dad is making an effort and have some resolution. Dad shows that he cares in the ways that he can, and there are some things he can't make up for. I might have to work on accepting the resolution the way I want it. Oh, sorry. I might have to work on accepting the resolution. Might not look the way I want it. I'm gonna delete the next thought because it's the same one. Regardless of our healing process, leaving dad will be hard.
Yeah.
Okay, so of these, which one do you feel that you have the strongest belief in? Which one speaks to you most? Which one or ones, you could pick more than one, do you feel is overwhelmingly relevant when you think about your anger, exhaustion, sadness, defeat, worry, and anxiety?
The bottom two. I might have to work on accepting the resolution might not look the way I want. And
Yeah.
regardless of our healing process, leaving dad will be hard.
Okay. Thank you for that. So now I'm gonna um, I'm gonna add these feeling words again to the last column. The last column is about your present feelings, right? I want you to just take a moment and think about your two alternative thoughts and meditate on them for a moment and tell me, how would you rate your anger when you think to yourself, I might have to work on accepting the resolution? Sorry, I might have to work on accepting that the resolution might not look the way I want it. And regardless of our healing process, leaving dad will be hard. Where's your anger?
One.
Did you say one?
Yeah.
Okay. And exhaustion?
Maybe two.
Okay. Sadness? 10. Defeat?
Two.
Mhm. Worry?
Mm, two.
Okay. Fear? Did you say one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And grief?
One.
Anxiety? Whoa. That's one of the most significant changes in feelings.
Yeah.
What did you what do you make of the intensity of your feelings being reduced so significantly?
It's actually quite peaceful to
Mm,
like have gone through it, and I'm like, oh, that's what that is, and like that's actually like I don't know. I feel like the truth sets you free in that way. That I'm like, oh, the real thing is actually sadness. Here's why it's sad. It's sad
mm,
because
yeah.
I won't get the solution the way that I want it to look. Yeah,
Mhm.
relief.
Well, you said
And
sets me free. So I wrote down relief and you also said peace. Are there other feelings that come up for you?
peace, relief, um, ease.
Ease.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say those three.
Okay. It seems like, you know, when some of the other feelings, we contain them or they shrink in intensity, there's room for some of these other emotions or experiences. Um, I would say, though, that I think I like that your the intensity of all your present feelings went down, but I do wonder um, if in other situations that are similar, your your grief and worry might actually go up quite a bit, right? Because I think there is, as much as there's a big piece around, you know, resolution not happening, I think when resolution doesn't happen in the way that we want, I think we still grieve, right? There's a
Mm,
sadness there, there's a loss about what we imagine could happen. And, you know, you're talking about like being independent, emancipating, you know, being your own person separate from your father. And I imagine there would be some grief in that as well, right? So I just want to put out there that I think when anger and exhaustion and anxiety decrease, there's a chance that things like worry and grief might increase. So as you move forward, just create some mental space for that, because I think those are emotions that are much more. I think they can be more workable. I don't think they will make you feel as stuck.
I appreciate that note. I think so too.
Farah, before we end today, I just want to ask you if there's anything else you'd like to share or you'd like to say about CBT, this use of the thought record, your experience of this process.
So I'll start with a thank you for letting me come and work through, because I feel so much better. Like just even in my body, like it's just a lot more relaxed, and even here, just mentally it's much more relaxed. I appreciate going through this with you. I'm a big believer in the thought record. Like I think being able to visually see it and having someone help me disseminate, like, what are the actual thoughts and where are they rooted, and like what and it, for me, this was true, that like the automatic thoughts did come from one place, which was the dishonesty. But I also feel like, I don't know, I'm getting emotional from like gratitude, that I'm like, oh, as I look at the alternative thought, I'm like, oh, that's what I've been seeking, is what's the alternative?
Right.
Like, the anger is, it's there, and the sad, yes, those things are there, but I'm like, oh, it's actually sadness, and it's actually this thing, and that's actually okay. Like,
right.
I think when you've been in anger for so long, like I have, it's the easier emotion to navigate because I know what to do in it. But it's like, oh, sadness is a different type of pain, and grief is a different type of pain. And
totally.
This activity was fantastic and so helpful. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome, and I appreciate that you're somebody who you've used mind over mood on your own, and so you're somewhat well versed in what the outcome of these exercises are supposed to be. And in my experience as a therapist, I also need somebody to guide me through this. I find doing it on my own is not it's just harder, so having someone coach you through it can be really useful. So thank you for joining us. And I hope you continue your journey using both CBT and other kinds of therapy, and you find the healing you're looking for. You're very welcome. Take care. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the CBT Dive. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at the.politicized.practitioner. You can also listen on the go, wherever you get your podcasts. To follow Rahim on social media, check out ladyativan.com. See you soon.